So you've described the affiliate industry as the Wild West.
Cowboys everywhere.
What is shaving?
As an operator, predominantly it's just money-saving activity, isn't it?
Why would an operator decide, I don't want to pay that affiliate?
That's really what this stems down to, is who controls the data. Affiliates have the least amount of power.
How are we making things better if we keep everything under wrap?
It's just a common thing in the industry. If I have a 45% rev share deal, what do I actually get? How is that calculated is the first question you should be asking.
Welcome to a new episode of Tracking the Truth. Today's segment is part of a series of two, Vanishing Players. We explore the phenomenon from the affiliate sides, and joining us is Joe Hatch, VP of Product of StatsDrone. Joe, welcome. Please give us a brief intro.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Joe Hatch, VP of Product at StatsDrone. I've been in iGaming for almost 8 years, mainly on the affiliate side, and now obviously as a stats aggregator for affiliates on the B2B side.
Thank you for joining us. So let's start with one of your primary concerns, Joe. It's player shaving, right? What does that mean for when it happens and how it happens?
Sure. So the two main areas that we look at are revenue leak, and part of that is obviously shaving, and obviously aggregating data across different platforms. So when we speak about revenue leak, shaving is one element of revenue leak, where players and revenues are shaved off of an affiliate account and not paid to them.
Okay, so we make the distinction, right? There is player shaving and there is player downgrading. Let's put it this way. Yeah. So explain us a bit more shaving. What is shaving?
So shaving could be many things. It could be that players are untagged from an account. So you have a campaign as an affiliate, you're sending players on a commercial structure deal, either CPA, revenue share, hybrid. Shaving usually happens when you have revenue share or hybrid deals where you would untag that player, so you're no longer paying that affiliate for that player as their activity is in your platform. Okay,
and when does this happen?
Could happen for a number of reasons. There are reasons that are legitimate why players could be untagged, could be for fraud or chargeback or suspicious activity, self-exclusion, depending on where they're operating. Or it could be for illegitimate reasons, like they are just looking to save some money and they don't want to keep paying out affiliates for the traffic that they have sent.
Why would they do that, right? Why would an operator just decide, okay, I don't want to pay that affiliate for that?
I had a conversation with someone recently, specifically about this from the operator side. One of the points that they mentioned was that they didn't believe that affiliates should be paid for churned players that are then reactivated down the pipeline later. Obviously, if a player has churned and you're then going to a reactivation agent, you're paying that reactivation agent also revenue share, so you're paying twice the revenue. They don't believe that affiliates should be paid for that, which, as long as that's defined in your terms, that's okay. But then you also have CRM and activation fees as an affiliate before that happens, so you can't do both. That's, double dipping into revenue deductions.
Does this happen often? Is it a common practice?
I've seen it quite a few times as an affiliate. Not so much on the reactivation specifically, but I see it around things like deduction, commission structures. So there's not always clarity on what your revenue share is based on. Sometimes you'll see 25% rev share. I've seen as high as 70% rev share. Obviously, the higher that rev share is, the more likelihood there is for shaving, because why would somebody give up 70% of their revenue?
But that's downgrading, right? Let's stick to shaving. Shaving, we're removing player. We're just saying, okay, this player came through a link and is not going to make it to the affiliate account.
Yeah.
Why would this be done?
Predominantly, it's just money-saving activity, isn't it?
Okay.
There's a lot of money that affiliates are paid. The actual attribution that affiliates are using, it's very difficult to detect. The platform is obviously owned by the operators. The affiliate program is owned by the operators. So it's quite an easy way to save money that is not so easy to figure out that is happening.
So you described this as theft, right, in the past?
Yes.
This is a harsh word. How do you justify it?
Theft, fraud, stealing. It's quite a few words for it. If it's a legitimate reason, of course, you're entitled to do that if you're sending traffic from places that you can't accept. It's not just one-sided. But if you're doing this for the specific purpose of saving money or defrauding affiliates, then yes, I would use those terms. The biggest misconception around that is it can be legitimate, but if it's legitimate, it should be communicated. So these are the activities that if they're going under the radar, they're not being transparent and communicated, then yeah, essentially it's fraud, theft, shaving, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so when there is no communication, then there is theft.
Yes.
How often do you find discrepancies?
We at StatsDrone, we don't see our customers' data, so it's hard to quantify. There have been a few customers that we've worked with to do this. So we've looked at around 3 or 4 customers' data sets, and we have always found this type of activity for all of the accounts that we've analyzed. Not for each brand account, let's say, but for their aggregated accounts, there are always a number of accounts that have this suspicious activity.
So what you're saying is shaving at some level always happen?
Not 100% across every operator out there, but across an aggregated data set, we have always found it on some accounts that each customer's data that we've looked at.
So it's a systemic problem?
Yes.
Okay. So let's speak about downgrading, right? Which is another form of shaving, a bit less aggressive, but it is still shaving. What does this mean in simple words?
So as I mentioned before, we've seen cases where they've moved players from one commercial structure to a different commercial structure. Usually that's done by changing the campaign or the commercials attached to a campaign. As an affiliate, I found that this had happened. And when I spoke to the operator directly, they told me, well, we have done this because the insertion order, our agreement for placement on your site has expired. So we had, let's say, a 3-month insertion order for a position on a top list, and that was with a 45% revenue share and a CPA deal. After those 3 months, the deal, the fixed fee wasn't renewed, but then they'd also changed the commercial structure. So they'd moved them onto a 25% rev share deal. So we're essentially getting 20% less commission for each of those players retroactively, as well as for new players.
And that was without notifying the affiliate?
Yes.
Okay, and without having any rule written everywhere?
Yep.
Okay. So on what basis do operator makes their decisions?
It depends how you do business, right? So if you have an affiliate agreement with an operator, that's one thing. If you have an insertion order, that's another thing. Now, which one supersedes the other? Usually the insertion order is for a specific placement and the agreement is long-term. They told us that because the insertion order, the actual agreement for the positioning had changed, then also the commercial deal was no longer viable, but it was retroactively applied. Okay,
but let's keep it simple, right? There are operators that decide to shave. There are operators that decide to downgrade. Why those decisions? I mean, how does it help the industry? How does it help them really and truly? How viable it is?
Well, it's not insignificant money, right? So if you're trying to save money as an operator, the easiest place to go is affiliates, because one, it's hard to detect, and two, it's not insignificant amounts. So I found...
How significant would that be?
Well, I found between 2 accounts, two brands, over a few month period was around 150,000 euros that we had managed to recover from.
How much?
150,000
150,000
for 2 accounts.
Okay, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
Okay.
And obviously it depends on the traffic and the quality of the traffic. If you have one player doing, let's say, 1.8 million euros in deposits a year, you have a 45% rev share with an affiliate, just removing that one player is going to save significant funds.
Can you share which operator was this on?
This specific one, no, I can't. I would love to, but this one I can't, because we settled the agreement with them afterwards when I was the affiliate. Okay,
so we're trying to remove opacity, but we remain a little bit opaque, right?
Well, so that was part of the agreement, right? So once we'd called out that we had found this behavior, part of the settlement was, okay, we're going to pay you, but we don't want you to talk about it.
So when an operator is caught doing this, do you think it stops them doing it again, or they just keep going until they're caught again?
In my experience, it stops for that specific affiliate. So once you've made them aware that you can find these patterns of behavior, they will no longer do it to you. Whether or not they're still doing it to their other affiliate customers is hard to determine.
Okay, so shouldn't be it something that affiliates share at some point, at some level, so that these bad practices are stopped? Because we're having a conversation where we're not really naming, we're speaking about people, operators, they and whatever. Mm-hmm. We really don't want to go into specifics because we don't want to hurt people or hurt reputation or create damage and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But how are we making things better if we keep everything under wrapped?
Mm-hmm. I think it's just a common thing in the industry, right? So there are forums, there are Telegram and, channels, the WhatsApp groups that people are in, affiliate managers, brands, they do exist, but they're still quite, inside clubs. You have to be in the groups and you'll have people say, hey, I'm about to do a deal with this affiliate or with this operator. What does everybody think? And it isn't as transparent or out there as it could be. There are some forums that are publicly available, like GPWA, where people will go and talk about these things, and they have a good a resource on there which is ERS calculation. So what they do is they actually deposit real money, follow that as an affiliate, so they get someone to deposit real money and then see what the deductions are. So they know that there's a 45% rev share. What is the effective rev share at the end of that? And they'll publish that and get paid. Sometimes it's 12% that they get at the end of the day.
So when a player disappears or is downgraded, what should an affiliate do? What is the first step one should take?
First step, I would say, is speak to the account manager, right? Try to find out if there was a reason that this happened. Was there a legitimate reason? And if it was a legitimate reason, why it wasn't communicated originally? Because there are times where it could just be, it wasn't communicated. This person is, doing chargeback, so we're no longer going to, pay commissions for them. If you start seeing that at scale, then obviously the next step is to look at your agreements and decide whether you want to escalate it further. So we've gone as far as, when I was an affiliate, sending, legal letters. Most of the time they don't want to go as far as, having a court case. They'll say, okay, let's just settle this and move on.
So when an affiliate is being told, okay, this is a fraud player, are they actually asking for the data to see that there was a chargeback or there was, multiple accounts or whatever the fraud is based on? Mm-hmm. And are the operator willing to share that information?
It depends on the operator, it depends on the relationship, and it depends legally what they can share, right? So obviously they're not going to be sending personal information and credit card statements, but if their system supports, ability to see chargebacks and there's no personal data being shared, typically they will. It depends who you're dealing with. So there are account managers that will escalate that to their legal and compliance team and you'll deal with them, or sometimes they'll just say it's chargeback and you have to take our word.
Okay. What should be those reasons? What is a good reason to remove a player or downgrade a player?
So if your agreement is, let's say, based on number of FTDs delivered, which they'll call something like a dynamic rev share, that's a reason for upgrading and downgrading players. So if your first 50 players, 50 FTDs, we give you 25%, the next 100 we give you 30, then 35. That is a reason why that could happen. So you have quotas, those quotas are not being hit. Your dynamic rev share is then affected positively or negatively.
Yeah, but that's not a downgrade, right? This is part of a contract that has been established between the operator and the affiliate, right? So that's not bad practice.
Usually it's part of the agreement. So that's the legitimate reason for this to happen.
So there is basically no legitimate reason for it to happen unless there is a contract.
Exactly, depending on the terms of your agreement. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to say that there's good actors and bad actors. I don't think it's as granular as that. I think shaving can come in many different forms where actually even the people making the deals might not be aware of shaving from both sides, but it's because of potentially lack of training or lack of the agreements being specified. So when I say that, I mean I will sign an affiliate agreement for a 45% revenue share. What is that 45% of? And if you ask your affiliate manager, your account manager, like, what is the calculation for working that out? They're not always able to give you an answer. So that depends on what fees there are. You know, admin fee is usually across all of the deals. What is included in this admin fee? Sometimes you'll find that the admin fee includes platform fees, but you've got platform fees.
We're going in a lot of technicalities, right? But really and truly, it is, we're speaking here, it's lack of transparency, because I mean, everyone should have enough transparency to get to the bottom of what is exactly being paid. So how much damage bad affiliate practice does to the industry?
I think that it's quite common. I don't think that it's just one-sided. As much as we're saying the shaving is happening from the operators, I think there's also bad practices from affiliates.
Okay.
And there's a number of things that affiliates can do, which is essentially shaving from the operator, such as you have multiple brands, and those brands have got bundling. You've got brand bundling included, right? So affiliates will then make one account per brand to avoid paying those fees. So it is widespread. It is quite damaging in terms of building relationships. And I think that the more that this is continuing and is accepted and is not addressed, the more widespread it becomes. So we've gone into the commercial side, you know, at the very basic level. If I have a 45% rev share deal, what do I actually get for that 45%? What are the fees? What are the deductions? How is that, you know, calculated is the first question you should be asking.
So what's the purpose of all this tension, lack of trust, lack of transparency? I don't get it, right?
Yeah.
Who benefits from this?
Yeah.
From being cheated from either side?
It's a crazy thing to think about, right? When it comes to doing business deals and building relationships and partnerships. The only thing is like cat and mouse, right? It's an ecosystem. Operators that work with affiliates, you know, they can drive good traffic. There are benefits to having those relationships, but it feels like it's still us versus them mentality. And it doesn't seem so prevalent that building those good, strong relationships, having quality over quantity is the primary focus for many of those discussions.
So why is that? Is it because there is an imbalance in power, because there is an imbalance in the ownership of data, and that there is a lack of equality? What's happening there?
Yeah, I think it's just the way the industry is and has been. So up until fairly recently, I'm sure you will agree, I think affiliates have not really been asking for as much data as they are today, or there's not been access to as much data. You know, affiliation is getting harder, operating is becoming harder. You know, five years ago, I think affiliation was very transactional. We send a player and we get paid. They didn't care as much, you know, where they came from and what the player ID was, what was their activity, what's the lifetime value. It was kind of just a very in and out transactional relationship. Which has enabled this to be the case, right? If we're not tracking these numbers and we're not making the most of the data that we have, it's easy for these things to slip under the radar, whether they're intentional or not. So now we're finding this is becoming more talked about and it's becoming more important. And I think that's the foundation for building these relationships, is actually being aware of the problem and then what do we do about it?
Okay. But in your opinion, why is the system structured in a way that leaves affiliates so, you know, exposed, vulnerable? Why is that?
Affiliates have the least amount of power with the data, right? So maybe they control the traffic, but they don't own the data. The data is owned by the operator, the affiliate program, right? You can ask for data from the affiliate side. Maybe they will get it, maybe they won't. And that's really what this stems down to, is who controls the data. Now, affiliates control the traffic, but they don't control the data.
Okay. So what leverage, if any, affiliates have to change that?
So we're seeing it happen already. Affiliates are starting to work with providers that give them more transparent data and access to reports. You know, I know a couple of affiliates that have said we're not going to work with people unless they're, you know, providing, you know, daily data, with, revenue breakdown split by commission types and these data points. If we're relying still on a spreadsheet that's updated once a week, we're not going to work with them.
Okay, but these would be very big affiliates, right? So that concern top tier. What about the smaller affiliates? How do they navigate that?
So it's harder for small affiliates to demand these things. Really, the power shift for smaller affiliates can be achieved mainly through technology. So them implementing better practices, having click IDs, having full funnel attribution. Obviously, that doesn't solve the problem. If there's anything happening before the attribution, then they're not going to be aware of this. But there are smaller affiliates now that are starting to be more granular with the data that they send, and then questioning the data that they get back.
Okay, maybe the affiliates should be more selective of which operator they work with?
I think it should be about building relationships. Yes, so building those relationships where you have trust, you have transparency, and it's beneficial for both parties. It's a business relationship at the end of the day. And it goes both ways. Affiliates might also be doing some dodgy stuff that is blasting out crap traffic, and operators, of course, they're not going to pay for crap traffic. So it's beneficial to both parties where you can actually have data that is shared and it's beneficial. Otherwise, what's the point?
Okay, but how do affiliates make that decision, right? Because there are thousands of operators. So it's a bit of a hard one, no?
Well, the typical flow is that an affiliate will apply to the program, right? So it's usually the operators that will approve or decline a relationship. So affiliates, even smaller ones, they might just blast out, all of the affiliate programs. And it's also why things like networks are becoming bigger, because maybe they're not, the right audience, but they just want to make some money quickly. So it does go both ways.
Okay, but that does not tell us how one decides which operator to go to.
Yeah. Depends on the affiliate though, right? So what traffic do you have as an affiliate? Where is the traffic? What's the quality of the traffic? What are their intentions as players, right? So you're not going to send tier 2 traffic to tier 1 operators if it doesn't align. So it's about choosing operators and affiliates that are in line with what your business
Yes,
is.
that I understand, right? But I don't think we're there yet, because here we're speaking about the reputation thing, right? So not if my traffic matches with your demand. It's more about, transparency, authenticity, and business relationships. So if there is no discussion about who is the good, who is the bad, who is the ugly, and I need to make a decision of where I'm going to trust my business, how do I make that decision?
Yeah, and it's something that might be difficult to do proactively, but it might be a case of, having the relationship and then reviewing where you are in the relationship. Any other part of the industry, if you get a new job, you have a probation period, right? It's not just to see whether the employee is right for the company, but also whether the company is right for the employee. And something similar is the case for affiliates and operators where, if I am a good affiliate, but what I'm getting back from the operator isn't sufficient and I ask for it and I don't get it, then maybe that's not worth continuing a partnership.
But we still have a power of imbalance, because as an affiliate, if I give the operator a try, once I'm shaved, it's too late, right? For the operator, there is not much risk. So how do we bridge the gap?
And we start talking about it. We start tracking the truth.
Good answer. I like this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So your software helps affiliates get more visibility, right? Yes. A bit like ours, but more in depth, because you do aggregation. When the operators know that their data is being monitored, does the commercial outcome change? Do we see a switch?
I would like to think no. Obviously, what we do as a stats aggregator is only what you are able to do as an affiliate, right? So we are collecting data on behalf of the affiliates, whether it's going to the account and fetching the data or whether it's using the API. So we are not getting additional information that the affiliate wouldn't have. The only difference is we're keeping a copy of that broken down by account, brand, campaign, and by day. So you can do this manually. one of the reasons people use us is because it saves a lot of time for those finance teams to do that monitoring. But we're not giving, let's say, additional information. But what we can tell our customers is that, this software that they're using does provide a breakdown by revenue type or commission type. And then we tell them to reach out to the account managers to enable it, because it depends on the program, what they can and can't access.
But so it doesn't change the dynamic between, so it does not scare away operators knowing that there is additional tracking or additional scrutiny on top of the data.
I don't think naturally the behavior changes. If they're doing something to change the behavior anyway, and it does change, then probably that's a benefit. If they're doing something they don't want to be caught doing, then yeah, maybe they do change the behavior. But usually what I find is, once we detect these discrepancies, usually informing them that, hey, we are looking at this and we are aware of these changes. Can you explain? They typically tend to ease off that a little bit more.
Okay, let's move on to standardization just for a little bit. So what you've pointed out in the past is the lack of standardization. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, how big is that problem?
I think it's quite a big problem. We are constantly looking at, what data is available, which softwares support which reports. And standardization is a huge topic that covers, not just reporting, but almost everything in the industry, right? I don't think there's much standardization in the industry as a whole. So it's quite a broad thing. We could probably talk for hours on. But even at the basic level, not having a standardized, naming convention for certain things, it does make things a bit more complicated, because if you don't have standardization, then how can you know exactly what you're talking about if you're talking the same language? Because you might have people with, FTDs, NDCs, NRCs, and they might mean different things to different people. So there's not really a one size fits all when it comes to making commercial deals. And that's where the majority of these, let's say, shaving could be misunderstanding based on calculations that are not defined between two parties.
So we're not speaking the same language, and we're comparing apples with bananas, basically.
We.
Yes. Okay, not we. They. So what?
No, I meant yes, in French, different languages.
So what actually stands in the way of standardization?
It's a very good question. I know that there have been attempts to standardize and conversations about standardizing for many years. Who should be responsible for standardization, I think, is the biggest question. There isn't one person that owns, the data and the terminology, so that becomes already quite difficult. Prior to standardizing, I think just having even definitions understood would be a huge step. And once we know that we're speaking the same language, we can decide how we want to move. But, as a stats aggregator, we see this all the time, where you'll see things like, FTDs and qualified FTDs, or sometimes qualified FTDs will be reported as CPA count, or you'll have first-time deposits and CPA count, and they'll be duplicating players because there was a first-time deposit and there was a CPA.
So is it opacity by design?
I think that there is some opacity by design. There's a lot of things that are hidden deeper in terms that are even not understood by people making these deals. So when you ask for more transparency, you're often hit with, I don't know. It's often not explained. And that comes from making deals, how calculations are made, what GGR, NGR calculations are, what terminology is, what's an FTD, what's a QFTD. All of these things are opaque. And when you ask for transparency, it still varies so much between person to person that it doesn't become more transparent. It just becomes
more
muddled. Yeah.
Okay. Who does it save at the end?
I mean, realistically, it saves relationships, commercial deals, the industry. If we get transparency, then we're saving a lot of time and effort and headaches by not having these battles. But on the flip side, it's also very easy to have the opaqueness and just continue as we are and not have anyone question these things.
But keeping the opaqueness, who does it serve?
The people that don't care to ask the questions, I guess.
Who are those people?
Usually, I mean, all parties, right? If you're an affiliate and you ask for definitions, you then build your own glossary between specific operators. You know,
okay, so the
still
opacity
varied.
does not serve the affiliates, definitely not.
No, the transparency would serve the affiliates.
Yes, so the opacity, the opacity, it serves who?
But mainly the operators, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And as a mean of?
Money.
Thank you. So you've said in the past that the industry is going backwards in education.
Yes.
Does this affect everything we are saying? So everything we spoke about is also affected by lack of education. So the lack of transparency, the shaving, the lack of communication, and so on and so forth.
Lack of education, lack of training, and lack of standardization. I think they all play a part. So what do I mean when I say that? I will take it to the most basic level. An affiliate and an operator, they are making a commercial deal. 45% rev share, €50 CPA. What does it mean? What is 45% rev share? Is it on, net revenue, NGR? Is it on, GGR? What are the deductions? What is an admin fee? What are the payment, deductions? Like, that's very opaque, right? What is an admin fee? And you'll find that when you ask these deals and you go up to somebody at one of these conferences like Sigma or SBC and you say, hey, have you got traffic? Which geos? And that's kind of the whole conversation, right? We've had it where we say we've got B2B affiliate traffic, so we can put that in front of 100 affiliates who have traffic. That's the end of the conversation because the answer wasn't, yes, we have traffic and these are the geos. And if you've seen up to 70% revenue share, 100% there's some form of shaving there, whether it's hidden in the deductions and the fees. So when I say there's a lack of training and education, it's like, okay, 70% of what?
Okay,
then you
but
don't
how
get an
widespread is that lack of education?
I think it's very, very widely. It's a common thing. I would say it's a widespread problem because and it's systemic by design, right? All you have to do is go to LinkedIn or a job board and look up a role for an affiliate manager, right? Open up 2 or 3, 4 affiliate manager roles and compare them, and none of them will be asking for the same things, right? So there's also opaqueness on job titles and responsibilities. Now, that bleeds into obviously the relationships that you build, because then you don't have if your job as an affiliate manager is to go out and get deals, it's not then on the commercial side to make sure those deals are beneficial. So who is responsible for that? That's where I think that the lack of education and training becomes a problem.
But who is responsible for that? Is it the affiliate manager? Is it the affiliate? Is it both?
Depends on the company, right? If you're an affiliate manager and your role is, let's say, borderline business development and commercial and affiliate manager in one, you would expect that to be part of the responsibility. But there's often, you're doing 2 or 3 roles as an affiliate manager that you don't have training on. So if you ask them, what is the exact breakdown of revenue share commissions that are calculated, they won't tell you.
So how do we change that?
Transparency, standardization, things that are not so easy to implement, right?
I meant educating affiliate managers. How do we change it?
Well, also by asking the questions, right? And not taking no for an answer. If I'm going to do business with someone as an affiliate, I need to be very clear on what that commission structure is, what the deductions are, what my effective net share is at the end of that deal.
Are you telling me affiliates should be educating affiliate managers?
I don't think that they can educate them, but I think they can start asking the questions which will push education, because they'll need to get the answers from somewhere. And if it becomes a common practice to ask these questions, then the education has to follow.
Okay, fair. So you've described the affiliate industry as the Wild West.
Yep.
What do you mean by that exactly?
It's cowboys everywhere.
Okay, describe those cowboys to me. I'm interested.
Less so now. I think the last kind of 5-10 years probably it was a bit more Wild West. But I mean, if you compare iGaming to many different industries, if you look at e-commerce or adult, there's a lot more structure around that, and it's a bit more, formulated in the sense of there are standard practices usually that you operate within.
How so?
Well, it just seems a bit more advanced, right? So you wouldn't be asking the questions of like, well, what does a conversion mean, or what's an FTD? Like, there's definitions of what you're doing, right? And with iGaming, I think that it's so broad in whether you're regulated, unregulated, where you're operating, that it changes the conversation completely. So you see more people pushing towards, let's say, non-regulated casinos or weaker licenses, and then it's just kind of less protection for everyone and pushing traffic where maybe it's not the best quality, and then obviously it doesn't make the conversation easier to standardize.
Okay, so what will it take for the industry to catch up with the others?
That's a good question. I feel like I need to come with like a silver bullet here that has the answer. I mean, I don't.
Fair.
I don't have the answer off the top of my head. I think it's evolving. We're already becoming more, let's say, data conscious and aware of, the control that we have as affiliates and obviously as operators, what you can and can't provide. I think we just need to keep having conversations like this. We keep pushing, it's not realistic to push standardization. We're not going to standardize anything overnight, but the more we have these conversations and the more we have the transparency, I think the easier these things get. And for me, I'm very, let's say, affiliate biased in my experience. I think having affiliates, ask these questions and demand that the deals that they're making are laid out clearly, that becomes a huge start to improving that. Obviously, I can't speak for the operator side as directly. But yeah, if you start asking the questions, then things get a bit easier to push down the line as well.
Okay, so despite all of this, you don't sound cynical, right? I mean, there is hope somewhere. So what single change operators could make tomorrow to start building trust?
So from my experience with StatsDrone, obviously as an aggregator, I think the easiest and best thing that operators could do would be to obviously make sure that the data is uniformly available to all of their affiliates. So what we see is, and this, obviously my affiliates will support certain reports and certain breakdowns, but it's up to each affiliate program or provider what reports are available. And you said earlier, you have to kind of be a super affiliate or a power affiliate to demand certain things. The easiest way would be to make sure that the data is available in the platform for all of your affiliates. And that also means, having things like an API that include the full data set. So we're still seeing, programs with APIs that don't support balances and things like that. So them improving what's available to affiliates would be a huge start.
Okay, so we're saying is operators using the best tools around to give the transparency that is deserved,
yeah.
Correct? Okay. So we're getting to the end, Joe. So the last question. What would a healthy affiliate ecosystem look like?
So a healthy ecosystem in an ideal world would be that obviously when you're making deals that there's, firm, solid agreements in place. There are still affiliates that don't work with insertion orders, that the terms are defined, that the traffic is obviously being vetted from both sides so that the operator is, receiving traffic they're happy with. If there's anything that they're not happy with, that's being communicated. So having these, touch points of evaluating what that relationship is. And obviously, for me, ideally, if I'm doing, as an affiliate, let's say 35, 45, 50% rev share, I would much rather have that as an effective rev share deal where I know what I'm getting. I don't want to get 35% and it ends up being 12%. So having that defined and knowing what is coming and being able to build that relationship, even going to an operator and saying, hey, how am I doing as an affiliate? How's my traffic converting? Is it better or worse than some of the other affiliates that you're working with? Is it, what's the behavior like? Having that transparency and that level of relationship, I think would be a healthy ecosystem that would be more sustainable.
So transparency and flexibility and communication. That's how we change it?
Pretty much. And standardization with an asterisk where possible.
Thank you, Joe. And that's a wrap for today. Thanks for being part of Tracking the Truth, and we'll see you next week.